One sheet of paper, 12-point type. A lender printed it, folded it once, and dropped it in the mail. It says the note is closed and the lien is released. The man opening that envelope just made the last payment on a 34-foot cruiser he has owned since the hull was new. He thinks he crossed a finish line. The line he actually crossed sits somewhere else entirely, and on the far side of it, his boat is worth negative $8,000. Marine loans in this country run 10 to 20 years. Mainstream marine lenders stop writing notes on a hull past 15 to 20 years of age, at any price, in any condition. Those are the same numbers. The month your last payment clears is close to the month the next buyer stops being able to borrow against her. When did you make your last boat payment, and what year is the hull? Put both numbers in the comments. This is the Arithmetic Yachts and Boats runs. Subscribe so you get the next one. Nobody built that trap. That is what makes it worth 14 minutes of your time. A lender picked 20 years because a loan balance should not outlive the collateral it is written against. Down the street, in a different building, a competitor landed on the same figure for the same reason, and neither of them was thinking about you standing on a dock with a paid-off boat and no buyer. The lenders, who will still look at an older hull, make you pay for the privilege. Expect a loan-to-value ratio down at 60 to 70%, which means a bigger deposit and an interest rate running 1 to 2 points above what the same borrower gets on a newer boat. A handful of specialists will finance a vessel up to 30 years old, but only on loans above $100,000. Your 34-footer does not qualify for any of that. Follow what happens after that letter arrives. Your boat sits in a slip. That slip comes with a contract, and the contract requires liability insurance. Across Florida, Virginia, Wisconsin, and Delaware, Marina agreements set the same floor: $300,000 minimum, $500,000 at plenty of them. California Yacht. Marina wants the certificate to name the marina as additional insured, and it wants the policy to carry oil pollution, fuel spill liability, and hull coverage before your boat moves in. No state on that list requires boat insurance by law. Every requirement in that paragraph is a contract term, written by a private operator, enforced by the threat of losing your slip. Hawaii went further and put it in statute. Since March of 2020, boats 26 feet and over need at least $100,000 in coverage, written specifically so that removal and salvage of a grounded vessel are paid for. Read that clause again. The state did not require insurance to protect the boat or the sailor. It required insurance to guarantee somebody funds the cleanup, and the slip you are paying for is not cheap while you wait. The 2026 baseline runs $15 to $35 per foot per month, and Newport Beach published a rate of $53.34 per foot for a 40-foot slip in the Balboa Yacht Basin. Now take the certificate to a carrier. Geico publishes its own age bands, and they are worth reading closely because they are the only public document in this entire chain that puts a number on anything. A boat over 20 years old gets filed as older. Somewhere between 25 and 40, it is reclassified as a classic, and past the 40-year mark, it becomes an antique. Those three words are not sentiment, they are risk categories, and each one narrows the list of carriers who will look at you. Sailboat owners report what happens next. Survey demands arriving at renewal after 11 claim-free years. Non-renewals issued with no reason attached. One man's 1985 Bayfield 29 was dropped in 2025, and he never got an explanation, so he worked out the reason himself by comparing notes with other owners. That is where the rule actually lives. I went looking for the underwriting document that sets the cutoff. There is no such document in public. No carrier publishes the number. No underwriter is on record defending it, and the only place the threshold exists is in the aggregate of other men's rejection letters, assembled by owners on forums after the fact. An industry declined to publish the rule. Its customers reverse-engineered it one declination at a time. Without that certificate, the marina will not give you the slip. The bank has the same problem from the other direction, because collateral has to be insured before anyone can lend against it, so a buyer who cannot get a policy cannot get a loan either. No insurance means no slip. Strip the slip and the financing out of the same transaction, and the financed buyer disappears with them, because he cannot keep the boat anywhere and cannot borrow to buy her in the first place. What is left is the cash market, and the cash market for a 34-foot sailboat is small and extremely particular about what it takes home. That chain is not a theory. Every link in it is written into a contract somebody signs. The ledger does not lie. Now the number that started this. Practical Sailor puts hauling and scrapping a fiberglass hull at $200 to $500 per foot, and where you land inside that spread depends on size, on the distance to the disposal yard, and on whether she has to be floated or dragged out of the mud before anyone can put slings under her. Run it on a 28-footer, $5,600 at the low end, $14,000 at the high end. That is what it costs to make her stop existing. So a 28-foot sailboat with a dead rig and no insurance is not worth nothing. She is worth roughly negative $8,000, and every season she sits in a yard collecting storage charges. That number gets worse. Which part of that lands harder for you, the cost itself or the fact that no broker will ever put it on a listing sheet? Roughly 30% of a disposal quote is trucking, moving the hull and nothing else, which means location decides whether disposal is affordable to you, and the condition of the boat barely enters into it. Old fiberglass carries no scrap value on the other side either. A dead car is worth a few $100s in steel. A dead sailboat is a bill. For an owner cutting one up himself, the stainless, the aluminum, and the lead in the keel are worth less than renting the dumpster to hold what is left. Shredding the laminate throws silica dust, which scars lung tissue, which is why ordinary recycling programs will not accept it. Washington State has run the cleanest public accounting of any government in the country. Raising a sunken boat off a marina bottom runs $20,000 to $30,000. Processing that same hull through the state program before it sinks costs $4,000 to $5,000. The state pays to take boats it does not want, because taking them early is cheaper than recovering them late. Since 2002, the program has removed more than 1,200 vessels, and it operates on a budget of $20.6 million for the current 2-year cycle. One derelict barge in the port of Tacoma cost $463,000 to remove after 2 consecutive owners signed removal agreements and then walked away from them. You cannot walk away from a boat in this country anymore. Florida can fine a registered owner up to $50,000 for knowingly abandoning a derelict vessel, and adds a first-degree misdemeanor on top. Maryland treats the last name on the title as the person who abandoned her and holds him liable to the state for the removal cost. France solved it differently. Dismantling costs there fall on the final owner, and program prices average €1,207 for boats averaging 30 years old. The country that made the last owner pay produced the cheapest number in this video by an order of magnitude. Nobody has explained to me why that is, and I have looked. The pattern is not accidental. Here is what I keep coming back to, and it is the part that reframes everything before it. Every criterion in that chain measures documents. Not one of them measures whether the boat will get you across an ocean. The insurer wants the hull year and the rigging date. Marine carriers mandate full standing rigging replacement every 10 to 15 years, regardless of what the wire looks like, because fatigue accumulates inside a swaged fitting where nobody can see it. That rule is metallurgically sound. A working rig takes thousands of significant load cycles a year, and crevice corrosion eats a terminal from the inside while the outside stays bright. Of every gate in this video, that one I will defend. Replacing standing rigging on a 38-foot sloop runs $5,000 to $8,000. A ketch or a cutter costs more because complexity drives that bill harder than length does. An insurance condition and valuation survey adds $20 to $28 per foot. A pre-purchase survey runs $25 to $40, with haul-out on top at $10 to $15 a foot. On a 35-footer, the all-in number lands between $1,200 and $2,000 before anyone touches the boat with a wrench. Now hold that against what the survey actually decides. A hull can pass. Sound structure, moisture readings in range, well maintained for its age, and the carrier still declines on maintenance risk profile. That happens because the underwriter is not scoring seaworthiness. The underwriter is scoring an actuarial category, and your boat's category is set by her build year and her paperwork. Which means the man who chose an encapsulated lead keel, a skeg-hung rudder, heavy laminate, and real tankage made a correct decision about the ocean and an expensive decision about the ledger. The market pays him zero for every one of those choices. A 10-year-old production boat with a bolt-on fin and a thin hull gets full coverage and a 20-year note the same afternoon. The insurability score and the seaworthiness score used to be roughly the same number. They came apart and almost nobody noticed because the only people who would notice are the men whose boats got scored on the wrong one. You were right about the boat and wrong about who was holding the scorecard. The scale of this dwarfs what the sailing world talks about. There are 11.8 million registered and documented boats in the United States, plus an estimated 3.6 million more that are neither. Between 2 and 3% of them reach the end of usable life every year. That is roughly 200,000 hulls annually, and there is still no economically viable recycling pathway in this country because recycling costs more than the landfill does. Between 2003 and 2012 alone, about 1.5 million American recreational boats were retired. The fiberglass boom of the 1960s and 1970s built a fleet nobody planned to dispose of. Those hulls last 50 to 60 years with maintenance. The first generation is arriving at the end of that window right now, all at once, into a market with 4 gates and no exit. After 18 years of payments, 4 separate risk transfer decisions, and 1 letter releasing a lien, the owner is holding a bill he never agreed to. That is the distilled version of everything in this video. No single person decided your boat was worthless. A Marina risk manager set a liability floor, an underwriter drew an age band around a category of hull, a lender protected his collateral position, and somewhere inland, a landfill operator priced a tipping fee per ton. 4 true statements made in 4 buildings by people who have never met. The compound output is a number with a minus sign in front of it, and there is nobody to call about it. Ask the marina, and you get sent to the carrier. The carrier will explain that its reinsurer sets the appetite, which is true, and the reinsurer prices hurricanes that have not happened yet. Somewhere down that line, a landfill operator is quoting a tipping fee per ton, and he has never heard of your boat. Every one of them is telling you the truth. That is what makes this different from a scam. A scam has an author. I cannot tell you whether anyone intended this, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. The evidence supports 2 readings. One says, these thresholds hardened deliberately as carriers shed exposure in Florida, Texas, the Gulf Coast, and California after consecutive catastrophic seasons. The other says, 20 years is just where the actuarial tables always broke, and the collision with the loan term is coincidence. I lean toward coincidence, which I find more disturbing than the alternative. Now, the part you can act on. Every mechanism in this video that destroys a seller creates a buyer, and it creates him on purpose. The cash market is small and particular. That means the man with cash and competence is not bidding against financed buyers, because financed buyers cannot participate on a hull this old. He is the demand curve. The asking price stopped carrying information years ago. What you are actually buying is the remaining life in 4 things: the rig, the sails, the engine, and the core. Everything else on that boat is decoration. Ask for the rigging receipt with a date on it, and if the seller cannot produce one, price a full re-rig into your offer before you go any further. Find out what the last insurance survey flagged and who wrote it. Price the haul out first, because a boat you cannot afford to lift is a boat you cannot inspect. Get the marina's insurance minimum in writing before you fall in love. That number decides whether you can keep her. The man who understands this walks past 10 free sailboats and pays real money for the 11th. He goes sailing in May while the others wait on an underwriter. Once you see that the paperwork and the seaworthiness have come apart, you will start seeing the same split behind every asset you own. And that is the work Yachts and Boats does. Subscribe so you catch the next one. Because there is one more number in this chain that nobody at the boat show will run in front of you, and it decides whether that 11th boat is a bargain or the most expensive free thing you will ever accept.